Okay, I want to give you a few keys on time management. Here's why. How many of you have ever in this job felt guilty for not doing more? Yeah, right. You feel guilty for not doing more. Now, why does that happen? Sometimes that happens because we're actually not disciplined to showing up to the activities that we said we were going to do, which is like, oh, I'll make phone calls later today. Later today shows up and you don't make phone calls. You're like, I got tomorrow. I'll just make a lot of calls tomorrow. Tomorrow shows up and you're like, I still feel nervous about making phone. You just shove that. You just keep kicking that can down the road, right, Angelica? And by the time like Saturday rolls around, you're like, oh, I've only got 2 days left in the week. And now I've really got to do. But then I got, my uncle asked me to help him move something. And now I'm like in a pickle. And Monday rolls around, you're like, I completed 2 appointments and my goal is to do like way more than that. And I just feel like a horrible representative. And Jesse probably hates me because I'm like, and all that is your perceived stuff, by the way. Like, I don't hate any of you. I love all of you. But like you feel this anxiety of like, here's where you feel where you should be and here's where you are. Anybody felt that before? And you have this, like, you feel that gap. That's called vector guilt. Okay, that happens. And it happens to all entrepreneurs, by the way. Feeling like you're not doing enough, especially when you're in a situation where your schedule is flexible and your results are visible. I say that again, when your schedule is flexible and your results are visible, right, Kirsten? Because when you go to a job and you clock in, you're like, all right, I completed my objective for today, which is where I clocked in. I worked 9 to 5. I'm sure there's some results, but like I showed up and did work for 8 hours. At this job, it feels like there's this kind of like never ending, Trina, sense of like things that you could, would, should be doing. So it's important that you manage that. And how do you manage that? Well, part of it is just getting really clear on what your objective is, and then getting really clear on when you're going to put that in your schedule. And then comes the part about you've got to be disciplined in doing what you say you're going to do in your schedule. But sometimes people don't get clear enough in their schedule. Sometimes people don't get clear enough on what their objective is. And so there's all these opportunities to compare yourself against where you think you should be. There's an entire book written on this called The Gap and the Gain. Right? Here's where we've gained ground in our lives. Here's where we're operating, but we always feel like we should be doing better. Anybody felt that before? Like, oh, I should be a better daughter. I should be better in school. I should be better at this. I shouldn't suck so bad at this. I should be better. Well, the problem is better is like a non-definitive term. How much better? Where should you be? I don't know, better. Well, you're never like if you compare yourself against that, you're never going to be where you're always going to be behind. And you're always going to be focusing on where you're not good enough in life. Does that make sense? So what you do want to focus on, Macy, is the gain. How much am I better than last week? How much am I better than yesterday? How much more disciplined am I? How much have I gained? How far have I come from where I've been? Focus on that. And of course, you still want to be able to imagine what it's going to be like to be better, but from like a positive perspective. I can't wait until I'm there. What are the measurable objectives that I'm going to use to level up my skill each week or each month or my income or whatever the case is? Does everybody follow that? So it's really important that you have that right perspective on how you're viewing your own guilt that you're experiencing right now. Sierra, when you go on a mission, you're going to deal with the same thing, right? You're going to feel like, oh, I could be doing more as a missionary. And it's like, that's why you schedule specific measurable goals and you look back on your schedule and you look for opportunities where you could be better and more disciplined. All right. So when it comes to managing your time, though, I want to give you some keys on time management. And let me pull open. I've got some slides because I've given this talk at a number of conferences over the years. And okay, I'm going to pull this open here. Nothing fancy, but you know what? I will reshare this way. So let's talk about time management. And by the way, RPC is going to be designed later this afternoon on helping you do this. So has anybody ever heard of the analogy of like the rocks and the sand and the gravel and like putting everything in your life the right way to make everything fit? If you haven't, I want you to imagine that your schedule is made up of different things. You've got big rocks, small rocks, gravel, and sand. Okay. And if you put the things in there in the wrong way, obviously they're not going to fit. There's a whole object lesson story, email chain, right, from the 1990s and early 2000s that like went around. But the idea is if you fill your jar, if you fill your life up the right way with the right things in the right order, you can fit everything in there. I'll tell you another little story that's one of my favorite stories. Some of you may have heard. I heard it before it was a general conference story, by the way. For those of you who know what that is, but there's another object lesson that's really helpful. But there are 4 things in your life that you want to make sure are getting put in your schedule each week. And Tyler, I would even say in your schedule each week, your schedule is not even as detailed as it should be. And that's not a call out on Tyler. That's just me thinking off the top of my head because I just had a PC with Tyler, and that's a area that I could do better as a coach for him, making sure that he's got those. So the 4 things in life you want to write down in your notes. There are have tos, and have tos have specific times and immediate negative consequences if not attended to and taken care of. Then you have need tos. Okay. Need tos don't have a specific time, but there is a specific negative consequence if they don't, or an immediate negative consequence if they don't get taken care of, probably sometime within a 24-hour to 48-hour period. Then there's should dos. Okay. And those don't have a specific time or immediate negative consequences, but compounded over time, there's a big opportunity cost that happens when you don't do should dos. And then you have want tos, and want tos are just as important to plan in your schedule. By the way, this conversation that I'm having with you right now is the reason I was able to survive 16, 17, 18, 19 credit hour semesters for 6 semesters of college that I worked this job and sold Cutco as a representative. Tyler, I'm confident that if I could do that and do 5 to 10 appointments a week, that you can too, right? Working your full-time job, which is also for me. All right. So let's talk about have tos really quick. Have tos have specific negative or specific times and immediate negative consequences. What are those? Classes, doctors, appointments, team meetings, family dinner, time like going to a concert with your family, with your friends, family, whatever. Those are things that have hard times in your schedule. Most people really, when I say put together a schedule, that's the first thing they think of. Have tos. Pretty easy. And that's honestly, when most people put together a schedule, that's all they put in there. But I'm going to tell you, the more detailed you make your schedule, the easier your life is. And I'll say why. How many of you wander around feeling kind of anxious sometimes in life with all the things you feel like you have to do on your plate? Anybody feel that? I feel that way, by the way, being a 19 credit hour college student, and like trying to manage all my homework time and spend time with friends and, do vector. I felt like that all the time. By the way, it doesn't ever get better, just so you all know. Your capability to handle it only gets better. Because I'm going to tell you, being a district manager and being an entrepreneur, a business owner, is a field manager, is that in vector. Oh yeah. And having kids and having church responsibilities and having family things and having travel, like it doesn't get any easier. Okay. It just gets more complicated, but your capacity to handle it gets better. Now, I'm going to tell you my number one key. The only reason I was able to survive college is because I had a planner. Okay. That's something that I learned on a church mission, which was I plan out everything. And so what I would do is I got granular, man. I got granular in my homework time. I didn't just schedule homework time. I scheduled homework time and how many minutes I thought each assignment was going to take me to do, Beth. And then I always gave myself a little bit more to give myself some cushion, but it was like, this is the time I have to take care of these things. A lot of people in life feel like they need to eliminate certain things out of their schedule in order to be able to function. And by the way, in certain cases, that's true. Sometimes we can take on too much. But let me tell you a quick story. And this leads to my story, and I'll get back to our lesson here in a second. There exists a story out there that I heard a long time ago at somebody's Eagle Scout ceremony, which was this. The story goes, this guy convinces his wife that he needs a brand new pickup truck. And he needs a brand new pickup truck, and he wants a 4x4. And so he gets this new pickup truck, and they need firewood. And so obviously, he's excited to go take his new toy up into the mountains and go get some firewood. So he loans up his chainsaw, his protective gear, his gas, and his dog. And his wife brings him out a paper sack of lunch and says, hey, get back home before dark. This is in the age before cell phones. and he drives up to the mountain to go chop down some firewood. Anybody heard this story before? Remember this story? All right. Kirsten has. All right. Sierra, you have? Sierra, have you seen the message that they made with the video?
No, I don't think I have actually.
Oh, they have this beautiful 1983 orange Chevy pickup truck that they use. And I know exactly where it's parked. I know the dude who owns it. Anyway, because they took the snippet out of a general conference talk where somebody told this story and they made a little movie out of it or whatever. But anyway, so the story is he drives up into the mountains and it's a snowy day, right? There's some light snow coming down. So he's driving up the road, no big deal. And he pulls off the main fire road onto this little 2-track road to go down to a place where he can, get some firewood, fill up his pickup truck. And as he's bebopping down, through this little 2-track, he kind of drives into a spot where he slides off the road a little bit and gets stuck, right? There's a couple feet of snow on the ground. And he's doing everything he can to like get his pickup truck out of there. He's undigging it and he can't, he's like, oh, wow, this is, I'm in here a little ways. So what does he do? He's like, well, hopefully somebody can come help me. So he takes his dog out to the main road where the turnoff was, and he sits his dog down and he says, hey, I need you to wait for a truck. And so the dog stays there, and he's hoping that somebody's going to drive along, see his dog on the side of the road and wonder what's going on and come out and find him and pull him out of the snow. And he goes back to his truck and he's like, well, I mean, I might as well fill up the truck full of firewood while I'm here because I'm stuck, and somebody will come pull me out and we'll be good to go. So he busts his chainsaw out, spends the next, he spends a solid afternoon filling up his truck full of firewood. It's starting to get dark, and the snow has just been kind of lightly falling all day long. He walks out, he's filled his truck up completely full of firewood, walks out there, and his dog's chilling on the road. And there's no fresh tire tracks. Like nobody else is up on the mountain except for him. So he's facing a very real situation where he's either going to sleep in his truck tonight and try not to freeze, or he's going to have to start walking home, but it's nighttime in the wintertime and he might freeze to death on the way back. So he's kind of in a pickle. Anyway, takes his dog, goes back to the truck. He's kind of getting ready mentally to spend the night in the vehicle. And he jumps back in and goes, well, I might as well give it one more shot. Pops back in the pickup truck, puts it in gear. Pickup truck crawls right out of the snow and drives back on the road, and he drives back home. What's the moral of the story? It was the weight. It was the weight that gave him traction. A lot of times in life, we feel like it's we need less things in our life to be able to do, to be able to operate, be able to move forward. But really in life, a lot of it comes down to we need weight in life to help move us forward. We need responsibility. We need those things on our shoulders because that's what helps us rise to the occasion. Somebody follow that? I tell you, I was a better student because I had less time. At times in my schedule where I've had more time to do homework, I was worse about doing homework, right, Beth? You just worry about it longer. You just procrastinate it more. But when you don't flip and have time to procrastinate it, you get things done quicker. And so anyway, I just wanted to share with you that story because that really goes a long way when it comes to all the things that we have in our schedule as representatives and a certain amount of flexibility. It's okay to add things as long as you have it's okay to add things as long as you got the capacity and the toolbox to manage it. And that's really what I want to give you here is the toolbox to help manage the other responsibilities. And I got into this story in the whole first place is because the only way I was able to survive college credits, the only way I'm able to survive now as a dad and not be super overwhelmed is because I don't make to-do lists. I build my schedule very intentionally. Like some people make to-do lists. I'm like, yeah, that's nice. That's great. And it's okay to have like, I do have a running list of like light end things that I need to do. But when it comes to like bigger things, I make sure that I put those in my time as a schedule. And I'm really intentional with making sure that my schedule is set every week so that way, when I get to the day, has anybody ever woke up and been like, oh, I've got so much to do today, but you don't know what to like start on first? Oh, there's so much decision fatigue that gets wrapped up in there. If you can take some time earlier in the week and plan out, here's when I'm going to do this, 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 and you have all of the things you need to complete that week already in your schedule, man, life's easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's easier because you wake up, you look at your schedule and you're like, all right, I just got to be the very best that I can to execute everything on my schedule today. Does that make sense? That's where like an ounce of planning is worth I don't know what, there's probably some quote about that, about an ounce of planning is worth like a pound of, of manic, of manic working on something. So the next thing you need to put in your schedule are have tos. Have tos, or excuse me, are need tos. Need tos are things that we put in our schedule that have times, or excuse me, that have consequences, but there's not technically a specific time where it needs to be done. Right? That's things like sleeping. Technically, you could sleep anytime in a 24-hour cycle. Are there more advantageous times to sleep? Absolutely. Eating. Do you have to eat? Most human beings don't have to eat at like specific times during the day, barring medical situations. Like you could technically eat all your calories in 1 hour of the day if you want. There's people that do that, but you don't technically have to eat at any specific time, but it's important to plan them at strategic times, homework, phone time, things like that. So again, need to still have to get done today, but when you put them in your schedule, you're at a little bit more liberty to do so. Sometimes people don't remember to put eating in their schedule. And then those representatives, by the way, are the ones that panic at the end of the day and they're famished and they're stressed out because they're like, I just did 5 appointments today. I worked so hard and I forgot to eat. I'm like, plan it next time. Okay. Plan when you're going to have your lunchtime. It's important to take break times during the day. So I'm going to tell you what, you do 30 appointments in a day, or 30 appointments, you do 7 appointments in a day, your brain will be mush if you're not giving yourself appropriate times during the day to like give yourself a little bit of a break. All right. This next one is important because this is what really creates the difference between successful people in life and people who just or who miss out on a lot of stuff. And I heard an interesting quote the other day. And I liked it. And somebody said, I think hell, I can't remember who it was, said, I think hell is where at the end of our life, right as we're about to die and we're taking our last few moments of breath, we get to see who we could have become in this life and compare it against who we are right now as we're dying and what we achieved. I was like, ooh, right? Where we get to see who we could have become in this life, where we look at on our final moments of life, we looked at what our life could have been versus what it was had we, lived life to the fullest, or, to use a cliche term there. But here's what should do's are. Should do's are things that don't have a specific time and there's no immediate negative consequence, but they move the needle in the right direction. What are some should do's in life? Well, should do's are things like reading. Should read books. Somebody put their entire life's work or months and years of their life into creating knowledge into some specific area, should read books. I recommend some personal development books, some habit books, some history books that are probably important to read. And by the way, you could go the rest of your life without reading those, but maybe you don't have the habits or the capability or the toolbox that you need for certain situations you're going to encounter in life. I don't care what your spiritual beliefs are. You should spend some sort of time every day, like dedicated to some sort of prayer or reading scripture or both, right? And here's my analogy that I use. If you don't read your scriptures and pray today, tomorrow, the next day, it's probably not going to make that big a difference. But 40 years from now, 50 years from now, when you die, sorry, hopefully it's a little bit longer than that. You're going to, one day you'll wake up in hell, right? Because your life, those small adjustments could have taken your life into a different place. You don't have to work out today. But I'm going to tell you, by the time you get to your 60s, if you spent your whole life not working out, you're going to be in a situation where your body's broken down into a place where where it could have been in a dramatically different, healthier situation. So those are what are should do's. Now, by the way, sometimes people should all over themselves, if you know what I mean. Like, we should do this and we should do that. See what I did there? It's my favorite joke. No, but you want to make sure you're planning those things in your schedule. For me, journaling. I have to take some time every day to put my brain down onto paper. It's something that slows me down just enough to keep my brain, which runs at 100 miles an hour, 5,000 revolutions per minute, that I need something that intentionally slows me down and makes me put things on paper. That's a practice that centers me in a big way. if I don't do that enough days in a row, like I start getting out of control. Just out of control with like, I'm not focused on the main things. Anyway, what are the last things? Want tos. It's just as important, Tyler, to put the want tos in your schedules. Here's why. If you don't plan your want tos plan you. How many of you guys know what I'm talking about? Anybody ever done that with homework, by the way? You're like, oh, you plan a lot of homework and you do a lot of homework. And then when your friends text you and it's like, oh, let's hang out, let's jump on, let's play a game, let's do something. And you're like, oh, well, I got a lot of homework, but I've been working so hard this week. I need to take some time for myself and have a mental break and go hang out with friends. And then you go hang out with your friends at a time where you should have been doing homework. And I'm not saying don't hang out with your friends. I'm saying if you have time planned in your schedule for those things, you can do both. And it's so important that you do both. I want you to have a fun summer, Tyler. I don't want you to have I don't want anybody on this call to have any mental breakdowns because you're working so hard that you're avoiding other things. I want you to get really good at managing your schedule and to making sure that you're intentionally planning those things in there. Also, heard another thing interesting the other day. This is a study they did. Did you guys know that 50% of the benefit of a vacation isn't even the vacation itself? Anybody ever heard this? This kind of surprised me. 50% of the psychological benefit of a vacation is not even the break itself. It's looking forward to the vacation. How many of you got stuff this summer you're looking forward to? I am looking forward to October because frankly, I say party, but like in a different way. I've got like 4 different things planned in October, 4 different trips that I am stoked for all of them. And it's going to be a blast. Right. I've got 2 Jeeping events. I've got a trip to Houston, Texas. And there's like something else going on in that month too, that I'm like, every week has got something stacked. I'm like, just got to make it to October and we're going to work really hard when we get there. Okay. So make sure you're planning those in your schedule. By the way, another tip that I'll give you with that is I remember one semester specifically, I had class from like 8 to 12 every day. So what I would do is from 12 to 1, I would plan lunchtime and YouTube time. It was lunchtime and YouTube time. And I let myself, Jenny, do whatever, like watch however much YouTube I wanted for an entire hour while I ate my lunch. And then I got back to homework at 1 o'clock. And by the way, never schedule 3 hours worth of homework. Never schedule 3 hours worth of phone time. That's the worst thing you can do because how many of you have ever completed 3 hours worth of phone time? Exactly. How many of you have ever like completed 3 hours worth of like focused, dialed in homework time? Maybe Sierra, right? Maybe, some of you taking some Adderall once, I'm just kidding. That's totally a joke, but, no, but like you guys get the idea. What's better to do, by the way, would be to do like 45 and 15 or 50 and 10. So if I was going to block off chunks, Sierra, of like homework time, I would do 50 and 10. It was kind of weird to do this when I did this the first couple of times. And I'm like, this is a hack. I would go to the library and I would find a table and I would take my cell phone and I would set it on the end of that table. And then I would go sit like 4 seats down and there's just random cell phone chilling there. And I would do homework, Macy, and I would set a timer, 50 minutes. And after 50 minutes, that cell phone would go off. I'd go over there. I'd sit on the other side of the table and I'd scroll through Facebook and answer text messages and watch whatever I wanted on Instagram or, in today's world, is for you guys, it's TikTok or whatever. And then at 10 minutes later, I'd put another cell phone back on my phone, set it back down, go back over to the other side of the table and do 50 more minutes of homework. For me, and by the way, I'd get up, walk around, take a break. You need that. There have been studies to show that like max our brains really intense dialed in focus we're able to rev up to about 2 90-minute focus sessions, 1 to 2 per day, where we are really dialed in on the hard stuff. Now we can still work and complete other activities, but really intense like brain work. We only have about 2 sessions in 90 minutes within us, and we got to take breaks between those and give ourselves some fluctuating, because your brain operates at higher levels than other times. How many of you felt that before? Sometimes you're like, I am on my game, Mike. I am dialed in, zeroed in, like this meeting right now. I'm 100% in it. You might watch me run other team meetings, by the way, where you might even hear that in my voice, where it's like, yeah, I'm like exhausted that brain capacity today. I can still talk and teach and things like that, but you guys get the idea. So I bring all that up, by the way, just so you are make sure that I want you to make sure that over these next 9 weeks of the summer, before you go back to school, Macy, that you're also planning in the fun things, that you're also taking time for yourself and work your freaking butt off when it's time to work. When you've told yourself it's time to work, dial in, let's go, make a lot happen. And when it's time to take a break, forget about me, forget about Cutco, forget about everything and take your break and be on it. And just like I said this in the first 15 minutes of your training, give it 100%. When you're working, work 100%. When you're doing an activity that you've already put in your schedule because you premeditated this, whether it's having fun or making phone calls or being on your appointment with Mrs. Jones or spending time with your friends, be 100% engaged in that activity. All right, a couple quick final thoughts. Has anybody ever heard of Parkinson's law? Okay. Kirsten has, because she's heard me give this talk in key staff 4 different times. But Parkinson's law is the adage that time, like work will expand as to fill the time available for its completion. For example, if I said, Sierra, you have a once in a lifetime trip to Hawaii right now, you got to get on a plane. I'm going to be at your house in 4.5 minutes to pick you up on the way to the airport. By the way, everything in your schedule is cleared. You're good to go. Family's totally cool with it. No other problems. How many minutes is it going to take you to pack?
4.5.
Exactly. It's going to take her 4.5 minutes and might not be the most detailed packing job she's ever done. She's like, I'm probably going to need some swimsuits and a toothbrush. And like, all right, cool. We're throwing it in this bag. We're on our way out the door. If I said, Beth, you've got 4.5 days and I'm going to pick you up, are you going to pack in 4.5 minutes at the beginning? No. How long is it going to take you to pack?
30 minutes before you pick me up.
Exactly.
That's about as long as it takes me to actually pack all the things because I've timed this before.
Yeah, that's awesome. But you know, if we take it, if I told you now, and by the time I went to pick you up, it would take you 4.5 days to pack, because you'd think about it for like 4.5 days minus the 30 minutes at the end, and then put that stuff in there. But you guys get what I'm saying. How many of you, by the way, have ever like, I love this one. Anybody a habitual procrastinator when it comes to homework? Anybody's like, oh, I just work better under pressure. Anybody ever say that one? By the way, there's nothing greater than the focus that you develop at 11:01 at night when you got an assignment that's due at 11:59. You guys know what, you feel me? Oh man, you are humming, right, Stone, for those like 58 minutes that you've got right there. Yeah, you don't work better under pressure. You just work better focused. You can achieve that same amount of focus in your life, but that does take a lot of discipline in your schedule. But one of the things that I also used to do too is I'd plan out how much time I thought the assignment needed. And in certain situations like papers, I would double it. Other assignments like quizzes or small, easy things, I would give myself another 50% of time. And if I ran out of time, I was okay taking the C. I'm like, all right, cool, I'm done. I'm going to turn it in half done. I got other crap in my schedule I got to do. That sucks, by the way, the first couple of times, but you do dial in focus into a different level when you like maintain that integrity and that discipline with yourself. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying it was a strategy that worked for me. So it's Parkinson's law of time management. So again, this summer, in the following 9 weeks, know your outcome, know what you want to achieve over the summer. For some of you, right, Macy, that's 75 orders. 75 orders is 12 demos a week, right? Macy already knows that outcome. Some of you also know your outcomes of what you want to achieve sales wise. And if you don't, make sure you schedule a PC with your manager of like, hey, here's what I want to sell this summer. Here's what I want to have happen. Here's how much I want to make. Share your schedule with your manager, commit to it, to showing up to the activities that are going to make that schedule happen. And then you're going to fail. Fun fact for you. Yeah, you're going to fail. You're going to mess it up. That's okay. Rarely in life do you feel like things are always going right. It's almost always the opposite. But adjust your goal, adjust your schedule, adjust your habits, recommit to the next thing. Work on purpose, play on purpose, rest on purpose. Don't waste your time. We get one life, one opportunity, one moment. See, it is everything you ever wanted. So are you going to capture it or just I'm sorry, I could not help quoting Eminem, but we really do get one life and one opportunity to make things happen. So be intentional about what you're going to complete. And by the way, another thing I learned about procrastination is that procrastination is an emotional management problem. You know why we procrastinate things? Because we think we hate that thing. Or maybe that we don't think we hate it, but we don't think we like it, or that we think we're going to do bad. We have all these negative emotions around the activity, therefore we keep kicking the activity down the road. And then we don't do it until it's right up against the last moment, in which case we're forced to do that activity. So if you can manage your negative emotions around the task, it's easier to not kick it down the road. So I'm very intentional in saying as a manager that phoning, like some managers like, yeah, phoning sucks, but you got to do it anyway. Yeah, it kind of is not fun in a lot of cases, but it doesn't have to suck. It sucks because we say it sucks. Somebody follow that? It's like going to the gym. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, if your attitude about like working out is that it sucks every day, how are you going to feel about going to the gym every morning? Not that great, right? But if you're like, hey, I enjoy going to the gym. It's hard, but it's, I feel fulfilled after it. And while you're at the gym in pain and sweating, I'm loving the struggle. That sounds like BS, by the way, but I do that when I'm doing hard things. I'm like, I love this. I love that this is hard, and you lean into that. And then guess what? You become the kind of person that seeks hard things in life. Some of those, because this job, let's be real, is 80% mental and 20% like actual physical. Do you guys agree? Like making phone calls doesn't take that much flipping energy. It's like you type in some numbers and you hit the go button and then you read the script. The energy that gets exhausted at this job is like the 80% of the mental battle happening around all the possible outcomes and all the things that we worry about. It's important that we just kind of tell those things to be quiet. I like making phone calls because it's hard. I'm going to get better at hard. Is that helpful?